FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And we are back on the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and it's time for another Triple Lutz report. So this was one I wanted to talk about because in my stupid, impressionable youth, I fell for this one hook, line, and sinker, and now it's time for a little vindication, especially because I grew up in New Jersey, and I was a Bob Dylan fan. Forgive me for that one, because that guy could never hit a note if his life depended upon it. Yeah, he had some good lyrics. I love that song, Knocking on Heaven's Door, but 85 other people have covered it. And Lay Lady Lay. I mean, I was a big Bob Dylan fan. Maybe I would have felt differently if I'd seen him in concert. I mean, T.S. Eliot, Bob Dylan is not, and forget about listening to him now. But if you haven't guessed already, I'm talking about Reuben Hurricane Carter. And Reuben Hurricane Carter became a cause célèbre, or célèbre. And he died a few weeks ago. And I remember freshman year of college, Dylan released an album with the song on it, Hurricane, and we used to sing this song. And of course, this was before the internet, and none of us could be bothered with going to the library and pulling out the microfiche of the original newspaper reports. And just, okay, Dylan is supposedly a poet, and he took total poetic license with everything in that song. There was nothing in that song that was true other than the fact that Reuben Hurricane Carter was convicted of a triple murder, which he definitely committed. Going back, looking at the facts, there's no question whatsoever that this guy committed this heinous racist crime. And the fact is, he was twice convicted. So what happened? Go back over the facts. And now I'm an attorney. I can look at it much more dispassionately. And I'm taking from an article by William Tucker, who was a journalist at the time. And he said, I wasn't even going to bother with this. What else do you expect of the New York Times? But then Sports Illustrated arrived. And I remember looking at the headlines at the time when Carter died, and they all said that he was exonerated. And nothing could be further from the truth. He wasn't exonerated again and again. Basically, a federal court judge tossed the conviction. He was convicted twice in state court, New Jersey. And there is a term called Jersey justice. I've been a victim of it myself, mainly in traffic court, but that's a story for another day. So here's the thing. He said, before he spent 19 years in prison on a wrongful murder conviction, before he was the subject of a Bob Dylan hit and a Denzel Washington biopic, before he was a symbol of the ways of racial injustice can corrupt the legal system, and on and on. This is what Sports Illustrated said. So 29 years ago, in the days when the American Spectator had just moved to the D.C. area from its Bloomington home, I wrote an article detailing exactly what had happened in Hurricane Carter's 2 convictions for the murder of 3 people in a notoriously redneck bar in Paterson, New Jersey, in 1966. And he went back and read the story, and he was astonished to rediscover how overwhelming the case against Carter had been before it was overturned by a single purposeful federal judge in 1985. And he was a young reporter for the Bergen Record in 75. And he sat around as his fellow journalists literally fell over each other, vying to write stories, proclaiming what a grave injustice had been done to Hurricane Carter in his first conviction in 67. And what was astonishing to everyone else was that when the case went back to trial a second time in 1976, the prosecution was able to present an even more powerful case than the first trial. And I remember being shocked that he got convicted the second time. And after that second conviction, even Bob Dylan said, all right, the guy is guilty as hell, and we'll just leave the song as just an artwork on his behalf. And at the first trial, Carter was, he said, a widely respected and highly feared celebrity in Patterson's black community. But by 76, much of this had faded, and numerous witnesses turned up against him. And in the end, few people who were familiar with the case harbored any doubt that Carter was indeed guilty. And here's how it all happened. On June 17th, 1966, someone shot up a notorious redneck bar on the fringes of the black neighborhood in Patterson, killing 3 people. A woman in an upstairs apartment heard the shots, looked out the window, and saw 2 black men jump into a very distinctive white car with butterfly taillights and New York license plates and head off. A few minutes later, an officer sitting in a patrol car, having just heard the report of the shooting but with no other details, saw a white car speeding down a main avenue at 2 a.m. He stopped it. Inside were Carter and a 22-year-old named John Artis. And Carter was well known in Patterson because he was a troublemaker and numerous convictions. But because there was no reason to detain him, the officer let him go. He then drove to the scene of the shooting. A few minutes later, heard the description of the getaway car. He then realized it was Carter's vehicle. Several officers went back out on the streets, found it again. This time, a search of the car turned up a shotgun shell and a bullet that matched the caliber of the ones used in the killing. When they brought the car back to the bar for identification, the woman who had seen it from the upstairs window not only recognized it, she became hysterical and tried to run away. And then the police, when they had first arrived on the scene, found a 20-year-old hoodlum named Albert Bello inside. He said he'd been passing by when he heard the shots and saw 2 black men with guns walk out of the bar. At first, he thought they were police detectives, but he had once met Carter in reform school and recognized him. Realizing that something was wrong, he ran off, hiding in a nearby alley. After the car sped away, he went into the bar, found the dead bodies, emptied the cash register, and then called the police. And it turned out Bello had actually been acting as a lookout for another hoodlum who was burglarizing a warehouse next door. This is what Patterson, New Jersey was like in the 60s. And believe me, it hasn't gotten any better. It's a horrible place. And Bello was a hoodlum, had no liking for the police, and he refused to give them any more information. But when word began circulating around Patterson that Bello had witnessed the shootings, he became worried that he would be knocked off as a potential witness, and he now went to the police and told them that he recognized Carter, asked for protection in exchange for his testimony, but all he was granted was a promise that if he ended up back in jail, he would be moved to another county where local prisoners wouldn't come after him. So, Carter's only defense was 3 alibi witnesses who said they'd been with him at the time of the shooting. And with so much evidence against him, he was convicted, sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Artis, the young sidekick who claimed he had only been offered a ride home that night, received 1 life sentence. So this is what happened. And things stood this way until 74, when Carter received a $10,000 advance from Viking Publishers to tell his life story. His attorney immediately took the money and offered it to Bello to recant his testimony. Bello was back in jail again, and angry because he hadn't received a $10,000 reward for helping solve the crime. So he took the money and agreed to recant. No one believed him. The appeal didn't make much headway, but soon celebrity brigades picked up the story. Dylan recorded this awful song. I mean, it's totally out of key. And in the song, he said that Carter could have been the champion of the world if he hadn't been robbed of it by the racist society. But in fact, Carter's career was on the downhill. He had lost 7 fights the previous year, slipped to number 9 in the rankings. But a sympathetic New Jersey Supreme Court took all this under advisement, decided to overturn the conviction, not on Bellows' recantation, but on a minor technicality instead. And so it went back to the courtroom. Second trial happens, memories fade, but the fact is, without going into a bunch of boring detail, because I probably went into too much detail, truth comes out. The motive for the shooting is that a white man had killed a bar owner in a black neighborhood, and turned out that the motive for Carter's killings was retribution for the killing of this black man. And, his alibi witnesses totally recanted, and the case was stronger than ever. Carter was convicted, and then the case languished. Dylan totally blew off Carter, and, even the liberal governor of New Jersey, Brendan Byrne, wouldn't touch the case. Everyone basically disavowed Carter. And finally, it gets to federal judge, total lib H. Lee Sorokin, appointed by Jimmy Carter. He finally lets the case go and dismisses the indictment. At this point, Carter's been in jail 19 years. They say enough is enough, and that's it. But he was never, ever vindicated. Never, ever was he absolved of these murders. And there you have it. Bob Dylan is a fool. And we've got a lot more coming up next on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio.
Do you have Medicare or health insurance through your employer? If so, listen up. The healthcare reform wasn't written to save the healthcare industry or even to lower healthcare costs. Shoot, it isn't even designed to insure the uninsured. It's just a temporary political byproduct. Like a flat rock you step on in a swiftly moving stream, Obamacare is just a means to an end. Want to learn more about Obama's ultimate objective? Then you'll want to review our latest research presentation found on oclies.com. In it, a health expert and industry insider explains what you think you know about caring for your health is about to drastically change in 2014. Plus, he details the simple steps you could take to save thousands of dollars per year in health costs. It's free for you to preview at oclies.com. Don't waste time. What you don't know about the healthcare reform could hurt you and your family.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And we are back on the Financial Survival Network. This is Triple Lutz Report 352. And good news, would you believe that for the first time in generations, farmers in central Mexico have stopped planting marijuana? Maybe they'll have to grow a useful crop like wheat or corn due to the ample supplies up north, courtesy of medical and recreational cannabis legalization. Cartel farmers can't make any money off pot anymore, they told the Washington Compost this week. The price for a pound of Mexican marijuana has plummeted 75%, from $100 per kilogram to less than $25. It's just not worth it anymore, said 50-year-old Rodrigo Sila, a lifetime cannabis farmer. He also told the Post he couldn't remember the last time his family and others stopped growing mota. I wish the Americans would stop with this legalization. This is according to a website called the East Bay Express. And for several years, they've been writing about how researchers think that domestic cannabis legalization will seriously hurt Mexican drug cartels who have murdered something like 60,000 people in the last decade. And they've reported on how California cannabis has cut Mexican cartels out of the Golden State. Look, researchers estimate legalization would cost cartels billions, and a think tank in Mexico said that legalization in just one U.S. state would cut cartels out of the U.S. pot industries, and those days appear to have arrived. Farmers in the storied Golden Triangle region of Mexico's Sinaloa state, which has produced the country's most notorious gangsters and biggest marijuana harvests, say they are no longer planting the crop. Increasingly, they're unable to compete with U.S. marijuana growers. With cannabis legalized or allowed for medical use in 20 U.S. states and the District of Columbia, probably the most important market in the country, more and more of the American market is supplied with highly potent marijuana grown in American garages and converted warehouses, some of which is licensed, others not. And Mexican trafficking groups have also set up vast outdoor plantations on public land, especially in California, contributing to the fall in marijuana prices. So now we have both the DEA, according to the site, and the cartel farmers both screaming bloody murder about legalization. And according to them, it sounds like we're on the right track. And I wholeheartedly agree. And another thing that's on the right track, you know, when you see this happening, that people are scared, especially in the educational cartel, the higher ed cartel. Maryland puts up roadblocks to online education. This was in the www.the-american-interest.com. These guys have to go find somebody else to come up with their URLs. You never put two dashes in a URL, guys. Obviously, these guys don't know what they're doing. But anyway, enough of that. Winter for higher ed. Maryland puts up roadblocks to online ed. Maryland has decided to stand athwart the internet, yelling stop. The Maryland Higher Education Commissioner recently sent letters to numerous institutions across the country that offer online courses, demanding that they pay registration fees for the Maryland residents enrolled in them. However, there is no data available on how many are enrolled in online education programs or which programs they attend. So, I mean, after explaining how Maryland regulates out-of-state providers, the letter presents them with three options: confirm that the institution enrolls students in Maryland, then pay an annual registration fee of $1,000 and a bond valued at 5 times the average cost of tuition. Confirm that the institution is interested in enrolling students in Maryland and pay the same fee, or decline any interest in enrolling students in Maryland and thereby barring those students from enrolling altogether. I think that Maryland's got some problems with this. There's something called the Interstate Commerce Clause, and Maryland's always overreaching. I remember one time I was doing advertising by fax to attorneys in Maryland. And, you know, this was a controversial marketing tactic. And I was doing it from New York, sending them out. And I get this cease and desist letter from the Maryland Attorney General. And I just sent them back a note. I said, this is interstate commerce. I'm doing it from New York. If I was doing it from Maryland, you'd probably be able to tell me to stop. But if you want me to stop, I suggest you sue me in New York or go start a federal action. But otherwise, I'm going to keep doing it and do what you have to do. And that was the last I ever heard from him. And if I were an attorney giving advice, which I'm not here, just like I don't give investment advice, I no longer give legal advice, although I have been known to be a consultant. And if you want to hire me as a consultant and I like your case, I might think about it, but don't count on it. If I was a consultant here, I'd tell these online education companies to give a bird to Maryland. According to the letter, recipients have until April 25th to respond, even if they don't enroll students in Maryland. This is ridiculous. One provost, therefore, described the letter as the most aggressive attempt to date by any state government to enforce state authorization. On top of this, Maryland requires that online education programs undergo a lengthy accreditation review process, and now it seems to be vying for the title of the least hospitable state in the union. Meanwhile, the Department of Education is pursuing its plan to reinstate the requirement that distance education programs obtain accreditation in all states where they do business. You know, this is just government doing what it does best, which is destroying companies that are looking to succeed, provide a valuable service. And we got another story here. New York goes to war against Airbnb for disrupting the hotel business. Now, Airbnb, if you got an apartment or a house, you can rent out rooms on a daily rate, and it's a cool business. And as far as the state of New York is concerned, most of Airbnb's business is illegal. What had been a relatively civil legal proceeding spilled into the press last week. This was from April 26th, so it's a couple weeks ago, when the rental startup and New York Attorney General Stormtrooper Eric Schneiderman, that's just a joke, he's not a stormtrooper, but he's pretty nasty, met in court on Tuesday. Airbnb has said the Attorney General is determined to fight innovation and attack regular people. The AG's office claims it has worked with numerous other tech companies to stamp out illegal activity, but Airbnb is being evasive. And at the center of the dispute are records of Airbnb's hosts who rented their homes in New York. The Attorney General wants the information. Airbnb is worried about the impact this could have on its customers and its business, and has resisted. Now, they don't do business in New York. They're an online company that's probably in California or someplace out west, and the case is among the most high profile of any company in the sharing economy, peer-to-peer marketplaces that some believe could change how we do business everywhere. So here's a quick refresher on Airbnb, and this came from Mashable. It's an online platform that allows you to list your house or apartment as a rental. If you're going away for the weekend, got a spare bedroom for the next few weeks, you can put it up on the site, find a person to rent it, and pocket some extra cash. And the company is less than 6 years old, already valued at $10 billion. Seems like a good idea. What's the problem? But housing laws in some places prohibit the rental of rooms, apartments, or houses under certain conditions. And New York directly targeted Airbnb. Under their law, certain housing arrangements are illegal. What they do is they say owners or renters of New York apartments cannot rent them out to someone else for less than 30 days unless they are also present, because they don't want you competing with hotels and all the taxes they get. So if you went away for the weekend and rented your apartment out, though, through Airbnb, that would technically be illegal. Isn't that a lot of Airbnb's business? The New York Attorney General thinks so. About 2/3 of their New York City rentals are of this type, and you can get fined $600 a day for renting your apartment out or a room if you're not there. And Airbnb disputes this, sort of. Head of Global Public Policy wrote a blog post that 87% of Airbnb hosts occasionally rent out only the property in which they actually live, not exactly a denial. So, New York State has a problem with that. He's been going after this company for months, but, Airbnb has a legal notice requesting information on about 15,000 hosts who had listings on the site in an effort to crack down on tax evasion and illegal hosts, illegal hotels. Rather, Schneiderman sent Airbnb a legal notice, but look, they're not subject to the jurisdiction of New York. Not right, but we'll see what happens. This is what happens when the government tries to control the free market. Your apartment, you should be able to do what you want with it, but this is the government at work, your tax dollars at work. More on the Financial Survival Network up next. Don't forget Borderless Holdings, formerly known as Owings Metals. They're our sponsor. Proud that they're our sponsor. Make sure you check out Wearable Wealth Jewelry, 24 karat gold, held together by sterling silver wire, easy to take apart, easily sold off bit by bit when you need it. It's beautiful. It's better than Indian jewelry, I assure you of that. Much better construction, much higher quality. You'll be proud to be seen wearing it, easily pass through borders, cross countries, and it's something that you want to own. Borderlessholdings.com. And call them now at 855-604-6343, 855-604-6343. Make sure you tell them Kerry sent you, or go to borderlessholdings.com. Okay, so don't forget, borderlessholdings.com. Tell them Kerry sent you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Warning, you might live in a no-constitution zone. It's the shocking story you won't see on TV. Depending upon where you live in the United States, you may no longer have constitutional rights. Politicians are quietly squeezing the middle class to micromanage you and extract your wealth. Want to see how? Watch the free video at noconstitutionzone.com. Soon, you'll have the last laugh by using these cultural contraband tricks and profit like a king. That's noconstitutionzone.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
We're back on the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, brought to you by Borderless Holdings. If you're looking for bullion, if you're looking for wearable wealth, you're looking to put your precious metals into IRA, go to borderlessholdings.com or call them at 855-604-6343, 855-604-6343, and tell them Kerry sent you. So, getting back to the whole thing of Mexico, they're now creating their own border patrol. And it makes you wonder, why is Mexico setting up a border patrol? Are they going to be keeping Americans out? Is that what's going to happen here? We're going to have a collapse in the United States, and Mexico is going to have a border patrol. And unlike our border patrol, which just lets them in, catches them, and releases them, now their border patrol is just no gringos, no Americanos, no Americans welcome in Mexico. Well, I doubt that's really going to happen, but I'm just kidding. It's a joke. But, you know, for years, Mexico relied on immigration to deal with demographic imbalance caused by the Mexican baby boom of the 60s and the 70s. But now that Mexico's birth rate has stabilized, I guess Planned Parenthood has worked its magic for Mexico and its economy is improving. Mexico more and more finds itself victimized by illegal immigrants, both those who want to remain in Mexico and those who transit through Mexico en route to the U.S. A lot of people are coming in are not Mexicans. They are from Central America and South America, according to Henry Cuellar, who's a Democrat from Laredo. On Mexico's border with Guatemala, it's like a UN in many ways, he says. And the Border Patrol reports that in the past year, the patterns of illegal immigration into the U.S. have changed dramatically, with people known as other than Mexicans, evidently that's a category, who used to make up a small fraction of illegal entrants, now making up more than half the total population. And Cuellar says plans are for Mexico to deploy its new Border Patrol on its northern border as well. It would interdict cash and weapons flowing from the U.S. bound for the drug cartels, and would also help stop people trying to sneak from Mexico into the U.S. And if we coordinate with them, I think we will do a much better job of securing our common border so drugs and undocumented immigrants, otherwise known as illegal aliens, don't pass into the United States. And Cuellar says Mexico has generally relied upon its army to provide security on its southern border with mixed results. Mexico has seldom had a major presence on its border with the U.S. unless their army's been smuggling in illegals and drugs and guns and whatever else. I guess it's going to be a real problem for the administration if they have a border patrol in Mexico. How are we going to sell guns and smuggle money and pay off the Mexican cartels and governments? I mean, it's going to cause a depression in Mexico. Do they understand what they're doing here? I mean, this is a big, big mistake on the Mexicans' part. I mean, they're really making a huge mistake here. This could cause a collapse in Mexico. Hey, Detroit. All right. It looks like the bankruptcy is on the fast track. This from, I don't know, some website called Freep or something like that. FREEP. I never heard of it before, but voting on the city of Detroit's bankruptcy restructuring plan can begin after U.S. bankruptcy judge Stephen Rhodes on Monday, that was this Monday, approved the city's restructuring documents for distribution to 170,000 creditors. I guess they're all equal. After revealing 2 new deals with police unions on Monday, the city is preparing to mail informational packets to creditors, and then the vote will take place, which will hopefully get Detroit out of the largest municipal bankruptcy in history. 67,000 of the city's creditors, which include retirees and bondholders, will cast ballots on Detroit's emergency manager, Kevin Orrs. That's Kevin with a Y, Kevyn. His sweeping plan, such a scam. A plan reduces the city's $18 billion in debt and liabilities and reinvests $1.4 billion over 10 years in services. And judge approved the bankruptcy disclosure statement. That's basically a list of who gets screwed and who gets paid. And, he just didn't go far enough. But they should have made it a contract city where no employees or a very small group of employees are retained. Everybody else is a subcontractor, and be done with it. But he just didn't have the stones to do it. Detroit area bankruptcy attorney Doug Bernstein said it's a pleasant surprise that several groups that previously sought to block the plan are lining up to support it. Now it's up to the city to convince Judge Rhodes that the plan is in fact doable. Look, I learned a long time ago, if you stop paying everybody and you just keep the money that you receive, you can really make a lot of money that way. Point here, what they're doing here, the city's going to spin off the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department to an independent authority or private company within 7 years. 50% of the proceeds of the deal could be used to help restore pension cuts. Wrong way to do it. 2 independent trusts established to manage Detroit's retiree health care insurance will collectively receive $450 million to deliver benefits. Mistake. The city is escaping $4.3 billion in retiree health care liability, but this was a gift. It will also make no additional payments to its employees' death benefit plan. Retirees who currently participate in the plan will be given the option of a one-time lump sum distribution at the present value of their death benefit, which is probably very little. What else? Full coverage. Civilian retirees would get 4.5% monthly pension cuts and the elimination of annual cost of living increases, while police and fire retirees would get no monthly cuts and would receive annual COLA increases of 1%, down from 2.25%. What else? Secured bondholders get paid in full. Well, until Obama came along, that was the way it usually worked. As part of a previously revealed deal, the city's unlimited tax GO or general obligation bondholders get 74% payment, while 26% of their liability gets diverted to pensions. Well, this is what happens in bankruptcies, wheeling and dealing. Limited tax GO bondholders have not yet reached a settlement. City's offer to those bondholders is 10 to 13 cents on the dollar. City's plan also includes a grand bargain in which the city-owned Detroit Institute of Arts would be allowed to spin it off as an independent institution in exchange for $816 million over 20 years from the state and from nonprofit foundations. A little blackmail going on there, but I think they should sell a few Picassos and Renoirs and Monets and let that money go into the city's coffers. State's got to contribute $350 million, although it could opt instead for just a lump sum upfront payment for $194 million. And we got all sorts of good stuff here. Deals with unions aren't required to be approved, but city hopes to approve it. And the city and the DPOA are battling to approve an end to the city's 20 and out retirement policy. City sought to replace it with 55 and out with 25 years of service. We'll see what happens there. Those are the main things, but basically nothing's changed there. Unless these employees, freeloaders, are effectively managed, which they won't be, we'll be back in the same jam. Hopefully they'll be able to demolish most of the city and turn it into large cannabis plantations. Maybe China will buy the place. There is talk of having China redevelop the place, bring in 50,000 Chinese citizens. The Chinese will be happy to get the hell out of their polluted, contaminated cities. Detroit will be happy. They'll get more population. It'll get repopulated. What the cost of it all will be in the long run, who knows, but it's not good. Detroit is a shadow of its former self due to rapacious unions, due to thieving politicians, due to corruption, and a myriad of other problems. So there you have it, Detroit coming out of bankruptcy. It's been another Triple Lutz Report. Kerry Lutz signing off.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.